everybody, metalhead weatherman here. Hopefully everyone's doing well. It's had a good start to their week. We're jumping back into that Weather Nerd 101 playlist here, so hopefully you guys are smashing that like button, decimating that subscribe button if you like what you've been seeing so far and wanting to continue to see more. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into things. And we're going to start out with the Arctic Oscillation and reading more and more about these two particular oscillations that we're going over today, including the North Atlantic. These have a pretty big effect, or pretty profound effect, on the weather worldwide in particular. Of course, this plays a huge role in the weather in the US and North America, but you'd be surprised how much of Europe and Asia end up being involved in this as well, even Africa here. This also affects the tropics too, and when you look at the tropical outlooks or hurricane forecasts, this definitely is a player to watch, that in both the NAO, of course. So there's two phases with the AO. There's not a neutral phase with this one quite as much, because this is more so based off of pressure than it is sea surface temperatures. With us being this far north, usually sea surface temperatures are really a non-factor because it's briskly cold, or whatever description you want to say for brutally cold up here. So not really much in the way of sea surface temperatures to be worried about here, but pressure is definitely going to be the big thing. So we're going to go over the two phases, positive and negative, as we can see here. We're going to get a better look at the picture. Start out with a positive phase, where we have a pattern of lower pressure being dominant over the Arctic Circle. And what this introduces is stronger westerlies, which will keep that cold air a little bit further to the north in North America. Usually this will also result in the US getting a warmer winter, with also the higher than normal pressure a little bit further off to the south here. We can actually see drier conditions out towards the Mediterranean regions, which could result in drought. And then also with the higher pressure dominant over towards the North Atlantic here, we could also see some stronger trade winds prevailing in the tropics. It could work against the tropics really starting to be active. It's not really prevalent as much as this point, considering the fact we're towards the end of hurricane season, but in tropical outlooks, this is definitely something to factor in. So we have warmth and precipitation also being pushed towards parts of northern Europe in particular, as indicated right here, based off those strong westerlies once again. With the higher atmospheric pressure as well, keep in mind that with high pressure, you end up seeing that clockwise motion coming into play here, which also kind of funnels those storms towards areas like the UK, Great Britain, and also the Scandinavian and Nordic regions as well. So let's look at the inverse of this, which would be the negative phase, or negative AO as it's called. Higher pressure is basically, like I said, the inverse. So higher pressure existent off to the north towards the Arctic Circle, and introduces that counterclockwise motion and usually weaker westerlies. This helps a lot for cooler air to make bigger pushes to the south here, usually resulting in the US having a colder winter. And then with the lower pressure being off to the south here, this could allow increased tropical activity. In fact, I'm actually sure of it. And you want those weak trade winds, because that usually results in weak and less wind shear, which is great for hurricanes. You don't want strong wind shear. It's kind of different with tornadoes. It's kind of the opposite. Also, with the higher pressure existent over the Arctic Circle, we can often see much more cold air being existent across parts of northern Europe and Asia. So it could be a colder winter as well. But as a whole here, towards Greenland, we can also deal with warmer than average temperatures, maybe a slightly drier time frame for when this phase happens. Another thing to make note with this as well is that these phases change pretty frequently with the Arctic Oscillation and the NAO as well. So as a whole here, you could literally go through a forecast model and watch these two change. In fact, I'm going to show you a little bit of an example of it right now. I'm a little bit further ahead than I want to be, but right now we're in a what looks to be more of a positive PNA phase, or not PNA, but positive AO phase. It's force of habit. I often talk about the PNA a lot. But what ends up happening here is you can see that area of higher pressure usually also is accompanied by warmer air coming into play here. And you can see that a ridge is also built over the eastern part of the US here. So classic positive AO look. And then as time goes on, we can kind of see maybe the beginnings of a shift to a negative AO here. Of course, I can't get a perfect look at this, but this is giving me a general idea right now. But this will shift on and off throughout the winter, so you always have to watch these, because this can also change the track of the jet stream and so much more. But as a result, look how far that cold air was able to get much further off to the south here, getting even into the southwest here. This is the cold air mass. Now, just what exactly these temperatures are right now, kind of hard to say considering how far we look. Just kind of having to go back to the basics with weather forecasting models, so to speak. But still, this is a good example of what a shift from a positive AO to a negative AO will look like. And then towards the end of the run, it looks like we try to go back towards that negative AO. Because, like I said, this pattern will flip-flop pretty often here. Alright, so now that we've gone over the AO, it's only right that we go over the NAO. And this is kind of how we've learned about some of the blocking high patterns and such. And this is going to be important to the tropics. This will be important to winter weather. So definitely want to make sure you're paying attention to this part here. But the NAO, North Atlantic Oscillation. And here's a little history lesson for you. So late in the 18th century, a missionary reported that mild weather conditions in Greenland often coincided with severe weather conditions in Denmark. So the severe versus mild phenomenon eventually became to be as the NAO. So here's a look at the phases with the NAO. It's pretty much similar to the AO, Arctic Oscillation. And this is the negative phase, where we have the warmer temps over Greenland. And over here towards the North Atlantic waters, you can see cooler than average temperatures here. This usually will allot also for cooler temperatures, maybe even snow, to develop towards the Northeast in particular. Maybe even some of the states further to the south here in the U.S. A lot more unstable, a lot cooler weather towards the east. And then over towards Denmark, you could have more severe weather as well. And then, of course, the inverse of that, the positive phase, this stretch over towards the North Atlantic, warmer waters, also cooler weather over towards the Greenland region. And it's funny because Greenland's also owned by Denmark. So it's funny that those two are linked in that manner as well. So mostly this is going to be based off of pressure here, more so than anything else. But those sea surface temperatures, we can also take a look at that momentarily. But basically there is a couple of typical patterns that we'll see in the phases here. So in the negative mode here, we can take a look at the blocking pattern that we end up seeing coming into play here. And this is usually the most conducive to winter weather setups, especially over towards the eastern half of the US here. Get that trough going in here. And depending on where that ends up positioned, that could usually even result in a few nor'easters possibly. So definitely we always want to pay attention for when the NAO is in a negative phase here. And also one thing to note is you'll usually see a little warmer temperatures over here closer towards the Arctic, and usually you will see warm air and less sea ice here. Here's that blocking high coming into play here, and here's that ridging, and this will keep temperatures a little bit warm over here towards Greenland. And then as a result, you'll end up seeing warm and wet weather over here, and this is actually a decent setup for severe weather, just looking at the basics here. If we look at the inverse, the positive mode, usually we'll see ridging a little bit further off to the east. You could still get snowstorms with this, but it's a little less likely. It usually will end up being colder towards Greenland, and as a result, we'll usually see more sea ice there, a little bit colder. And then of course towards northern Europe, we're warmer and a little bit more moist. And then Over towards the Mediterranean regions, we're a little bit cooler and dry. There's that high pressure right there to make note of as well. This could also help steer tropical systems maybe a little bit closer towards land here. Of course, there's other factors that come into play with that. But as a whole here, things look pretty active when we have the negative mode here as far as winter is concerned. But we always have to watch for that positive mode during the summer in particular. This is basically what I'm kind of deducted from everything at this point. But pretty much that's the gist of the NAO. From what I can see here, usually you'll see the AO and the NAO possibly in different phases here. I don't know so much that these two could be in a similar phase. I'm still learning a bit about this, but at the end of the day, both of these warrant a lot of attention, because this will affect our winter, this will affect our summer, this will affect our hurricane season, and so much more. So now we can actually look at those sea surface temperatures here. You can see when we're in a positive phase with the North Atlantic Oscillation, or NAO, and then you can also see when we're in a negative. This is a positive or slightly a positive NAO setup here based off the Nino 3.4 index here. Anything above 0.05 is considered a positive phase. Anything below negative 0.5 is considered a negative phase. And we're pretty securely into positive. It's not a strong positive phase, but there's one that's definitely evident here from the looks of it, and has remained that way for the most part throughout a good portion of the summer here too. So obviously you can just imagine a negative phase that would be under negative 0.05 and probably going beyond. Anything below negative 0.1 or negative 1.5 would be considered a strong negative phase, and then there would be a strong positive phase above positive 0.15. But it's pretty much the gist of what we would be looking for from these oscillations here. Like I said, very important parts of the weather in regards to multiple seasons, especially hurricane season and the winter, which is what we're heading towards right now. So let's make sure we're keeping an eye on that. Keep an eye on the channel as well. We'll be making more videos on the Weather Nerd 101 playlist soon. Hope you guys enjoyed though. Hope you guys are smashing that like button again. Make sure you're sharing the channel as well. And if you watch to the end, special thanks to you. But until then, it's been Tired Metalhead Weather. Until next time, it's been Tired Metalhead Weatherman. You guys take care, and I'll see you soon.